Welcome to Totally Abstracted. I'm your host, Michelle, and today we're exploring the wonderful world of layering techniques to create depth and atmosphere in your art. Whether you're into acrylics, oils, or mixed media, layering is an incredibly powerful tool to add mystery, movement, and an ethereal vibe to your work. At its core, layering involves building up layers of paint. Depending on how this is done, maybe by glazing or applying thickly and then scraping some off, each new layer interacts with the ones below to create subtle variations in colour, value and texture. The magic happens as these layers start blending into each other, creating areas where colours optically mix on the canvas. This intermingling of colours can produce gorgeously complex and atmospheric effects that are impossible to create with a single opaque layer of paint. It's like giving your art a sense of depth and breathing life into the surface. One key factor to keep in mind when layering is colour temperature. Using glazes or washes of warm and cool pigments over each other can create incredibly dynamic atmospheric surfaces. For example, layering translucent oranges and reds over underlying blues and purples produces a glowing optical mixture that seems to vibrate with energy, while layering warm yellows over cool greens can evoke the diffused hazy light of a sun-dappled forest. Intentionally playing with complementary warm-cool interactions as you layer can conjure a wonderful sense of depth, air and luminosity. But it's equally powerful to use layered temperature contrast in more subtle ways to create nuanced atmospheres. But of course, one challenge with layering is avoiding muddy, drab colours that can drain the vibrancy from your painting. To prevent this, embrace transparency when layering rather than thick opaques. Use translucent glazes, gentle veils and washes that let the pigments below show through. Also, be mindful of over-mixing on the palette. Pre-mixing too many colours runs the risk of creating dull and lifeless greys before you even start layering. But don't be afraid of layering over previous mud areas with cleaner, more vibrant tones. Often these cooler layers can revive and energise underlying sludgy areas in fresh and unexpected ways. Now let's take a closer look at two atmospheric layering techniques that are often conflated, veiling and glazing. While they do share some similarities in involving translucent layered application, there are important differences. Veiling involves applying thin, semi-transparent layers of desaturated colour, like soft greys, blues or earth tones. The aim is to create a soft, hazy atmosphere that obscures and unifies the underlying layers. It's like gently misting over your painting with a delicate veil, allowing glimpses of the brighter tones to peek through while subduing the stronger areas. This establishes a cohesive sense of depth and an ethereal, dreamy vibe, perfect for abstract landscapes or moody atmospheric pieces. Glazing, on the other hand, uses brushed layers of highly transparent, intense pigments, often diluted with a glazing medium. But unlike the softening intent of veiling, glazing is all about enhancing and enriching colour vibrancy and luminosity in your painting. Each new transparent glaze layer interacts with the ones below to produce beautiful optical mixes. Glazing allows you to build incredible depth and complexity in your colours while retaining crisp details and textures from the underlayers. So use the veiling technique when you want to cultivate mood and mystery through soft atmospheric effects, but turn to glazing when your goal is achieving vibrant, saturated colour that has a brilliant, luminous glow. But the creative possibilities with layering extend far beyond veiling and glazing. Here are some other atmosphere-inducing techniques to explore. First up, we have scumbling. Scumbling is one of my favourite techniques for creating soft, magical textures in a painting. It involves using a relatively dry brush, dabbing a thin, broken layer of opaque paint over a wash of paint that's still wet. This creates a lovely mottled texture that catches the light in the most beautiful ways. It's subtle but powerful, and it gives your painting that ethereal, atmospheric quality we all love. Then we have dry brushing. This technique is a little different, but just as useful when you want to highlight texture. For dry brushing, you load a stiff brush with a small amount of paint. We're talking a really small amount here, almost like you're just dusting the bristles. Then you gently drag it across a textured surface. The key here is that the paint only sticks to the raised areas of the texture, which gives you that lovely rough, weathered look. It's perfect for bringing out the texture of the canvas or adding highlights to rocks, tree bark, or some other organic element in your landscape. You can also get some beautiful atmospheric effects by layering thick over thin paint. This is where you apply a thicker layer of paint over a thinner layer, whether that's a dry underpainting or a wet wash. You then scrape away areas of the painting to reveal glimpses of those underlying tones, which can add mystery or highlight certain parts of your composition. And finally, one last trick for creating a sense of movement or organic patterns is to drag a drier brush loaded with paint through a wet wash. This creates beautiful branching or flowing marks that can evoke the movement of water or wind, or simply add texture that feels alive and natural. And don't forget about using mediums. Adding things like sand texture gel, glass bead gel, moulding pastes. It all opens up all sorts of exciting textural possibilities for your abstract landscapes. Get experimental and see what unique tactile surfaces you can create from the medium pantry. No matter which method you use, the overall goal with layering is to avoid harsh transitions, blend edges softly, and create pathways for the eye to wander and discover new subtleties the more it explores the painting surface. So let's recap with 5 key takeaways about atmospheric layering. 1. Layering establishes depth by allowing underlying tones to peek through upper layers. 2. Use the veiling technique with a thin neutral wash to unify and desaturate your surface. 3. Try scumbling, glazing, dry brushing and other methods for textural layered effects. 4. Play with warm and cool colour temperature shifts as you layer to create vibration and luminosity. And 5. Use transparent layers to avoid muddy colours and maximise vibrancy. And for this episode's creative challenge, I'm inviting you to do a series of small layering studies exploring 3 different techniques we discussed today. See if you can capture a particular kind of atmospheric vibe or theme in each one. And feel free to join my Abstract Horizons Facebook group, link in the show notes, to share your studies so we can all be inspired. I'm so excited to see what moody, evocative surfaces you all create using the magic of layered paint. As always, lean into the process, embrace the wonky mishaps, and above all, keep things totally abstracted. Thank you for joining me for this layered look at creating depth and atmosphere. I'm endlessly fascinated by all the creative possibilities that open up when we start stacking thin veils, washes, and textural layers in our art. It's like sculpting with the brush, the palette knife, or catalyst wedge, carving out spaces that seemingly extend beyond the canvas. If you dig deep into these layering techniques, your paintings will start developing this tangible sense of physicality, like you could almost step into the spaces you've conjured with your layered marks. So start building up the depths, one layer at a time. I'll catch you next time for more totally abstracted explorations.